Hi everyone, good evening. I take this opportunity to welcome each one of you to a thrilling session on how to become a TED speaker. At the very outset, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's an absolute delight for all of us PlanetSpark to basically serve you with all kinds of potent and powerful ideas on how to become an effective public speaker. Now, according to Jerry Seinfeld, it's said that people out there, 80% of the people are afraid of public speaking, of speaking up in public, of standing up. And it's also said that public speaking happens to be the number one fear people have in today's day and age. Death is number two. Think about it. That's how petrified we are of public speaking. And at PlanetSpark, we firmly believe in helping you overcome this stage fright, this fear of public speaking, and eventually empower you with all the tools and ingredients that you need to become an effective public speaker. So, the mission, ladies and gentlemen, is to help you actually reach the world class in your personal as well as your professional life by learning the mantra, the right mantra of communication and public speaking. Now, my dear participants, we go live from Monday to Friday, every day, basically at 7:15 p.m. So please make sure that you do attend all our live programs. You grab this opportunity to learn, take advantage of these free resources, and PlanetSpark TV basically is here to serve you. And as I mentioned earlier, to help you unleash your public speaking skills at every given opportunity. Now, the charm of these live sessions, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're very interactive in nature. And all I request from you is your proactive participation in all the activities that we have lined up for you. All you've got to do is make sure you're ruthlessly applying all the mantras, the principles, and the tips and tactics I'm sharing with you in these live sessions, because trust me, they will work wonders for you. From writing your speeches to rehearsing your speeches to delivering your speeches to actually analyzing your speeches. These are some of the crucial steps involved in the life of public speaker, especially when you're beginning to launch yourself as a speaker. And it's imperative that you actually listen to these tips in the sessions and apply them as much as possible. As it is rightly said that the word improvement begins with I, right? Begins with the alphabet I, which means you need to start implementing things in order to see the daily incremental progress, in order to see the marginal improvements, and in order to emerge victorious every single day with these small wins. So, my dear participants, this is one of our very important episodes because today we are transitioning to a new topic. In the last few episodes, a quick recap, we've actually talked at length about the fundamentals of a TED Talk. We've talked about the three major fundamentals, namely, number one, the opening minute, in which we discussed about how do you open your talk, how do you start the quote, how do you have catchy lines, how do you incorporate positive statements, how do you raise relevant questions. We moved on to a second fundamental, my dear participants, which was the big purpose, which was all about, how do you incorporate importance of your topic in your talk? How do you move on to structuring your talk into cause and effect, problem and solution? And finally, how do you bring it all together with the help of summarization? How do you summarize, or how do you provide tangible solutions? Right? As a TED speaker, you have to give a solution-oriented approach to everything you discuss before your audience. The third fundamental, my dear participants, is a personal touch, which is all about how do you incorporate your personal experiences, some anecdotes from your life, or talk about your idol, your role model through the topic given to you. That's about the personal touch. So in the last few episodes, we've talked at length about these three fundamentals. Now, to make things really lucid and comprehensive and wholesome, what we actually did is we tried experimenting with different topics to let you understand that TED Talk can be delivered on absolutely any topic under the sun. It need not limit itself to only soft skills trainings or personal development or public speaking. Basically, you can give a TED Talk on absolutely any topic you are excited about, you are passionate about. And therefore, to prove it, we've tried experimenting with different topics. To begin with, self-confidence. We moved on to climate crisis. We moved on to Olympics, body language, and eventually the latest topic that we actually recently explored was meditation, right? And today I have come up with another theme for you, my dear participants, and we will be actually discussing the fundamentals of a TED Talk using the new theme, which is the sensational social media. Coupled with this, my dear participants, let me quickly tell you that the reason why exploring different themes is to help you understand how to deliver TED Talks on different topics using the same structure, using the same theme. So the theme remains standard. And the tagline of TED Talk basically says, ideas worth spreading, which means as a TED speaker, as an aspiring TED speaker, what you primarily need to have is an idea, a strong, powerful idea. Now, what idea can you actually come up with? An idea that actually challenges the assumptions of the society, an idea that actually questions the stereotype, an idea which is beyond the cliched ideas we've been seeing around. Secondly, you can share your strong beliefs with people. If you have a strong belief on a topic, on something, you can share that with them. Number three, you can always talk about something that you're interested in or something that forms area of your expertise, something that is an area of your expertise. So three things that you can generally experimenting with if you're thinking about how to choose a topic. Now, choosing a topic honestly is easy, boys and girls, but presenting a topic in an eye-catchy manner, in an attractive manner, in a captivating style is actually daunting. And how do you present your ideas? You have to make sure that you actually present your idea as a gift to the audience. You know, Chris Anderson, the founder, the curator of the TED platform, says that every talk has in it the gift of an idea. And how do you present this gift of an idea to someone is your choice, and that's where the challenge lies. So that's about a TED Talk, my dear participants. At PlanetSpark, basically, we have kids enrolled with us from across the globe, and we basically train them in public speaking, creative writing, confidence building, and personal developmental skills. I have an exciting number of students on board, and trust me, it's so exciting to teach them what is public speaking, how do you communicate effectively, how do you reach out to more people, how do you become more influential and more impactful. And that's something I've been thoroughly enjoying for the last few months. And the beauty is actually to see tangible changes in your students. You know, someone who couldn't really speak is actually speaking up confidently, being able to introduce himself, being able to crack interviews. You know, that is the charm of these classes. And PSTV Live is an extension of our curriculum. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to our episode. And as you know, this is all about how to deliver great TED Talks and eventually dazzle your audience with your oratory skills. Now, what do we have in store for us today? So as you see on the screen right now, participants, we have some exciting things on board. Number one, I'm going to start off with an icebreaker. Now, basically, the purpose of an icebreaker is get to know you. And basically, when I get to know you, your background, your interests, your needs, I'll be able to tailor make my content and maybe deliver something that you are looking forward to hearing from me. Coupled with this, participants, I'll be talking about number one, a strong opening. What are the three elements for strong opening using the new topic that we have today? We'll talk about Essential 1, Essential 2, Essential 3. We'll be having a lot of exciting games like, of course, who said this? Fastest fingers first. I'm going to ask you some questions at the end. I'm going to summarize everything for you. Coupled with this, we try serving you in best possible way. You all know it. And therefore, I'm going to give you some words to add to your vocabulary, some expert tips here and there. And the cherry on the cake, participants, I'm going to give you a recommendation at the end of the video, at the end of the session. I'm going to share with you what video can you actually watch on YouTube, which TED Talk primarily, which can help you understand this topic maybe more comprehensively and more holistically. So my dear participants, rightly said that if you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives, which means that as a public speaker, as an influencer, as an effective communicator, you do have the power to change lives of people. And I think that's a privilege of leadership. And that's the reason you need to start honing your public speaking skills right now. In fact, if you look up to any role model, the person has actually spent time rigorously working at his public speaking skills. John Ford had once said, you can speak well if your tongue can deliver the message of your heart. And that's the reason why you've got to be passionate about what you're speaking on. No matter what topic it is, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to have an authentic passion for what you talk about, because your passion is tangible. Your audience, remember, has an uncanny ability to recognize fake. So you really cannot fool them, right? And one of my favorite quotes from Dale Carnegie, basically, speakers who talk about what life has taught them never fail to keep the attention of the listeners. So actually talking about your personal experiences, your life, and how your incidents actually relate to the topic given to you can go a long way in helping you build an incredible rapport with your audience, boys and girls. Now, moving on, let's talk about let's quickly discuss some icebreakers. All right. So I'm going to show you some images. I want you to put on your thinking cap, some easy images, and you'll have to guess which social media app am I referring to. All right. So, the theme for the day is social media. And I want you all to put on a thinking cap and share with me what theme am I discussing with you. All right. So let's get started, participants. I want to see some amazing correct answers on the comment section. So please gear up. Let's make a guess. Number 1. Yes, participants, come on. Let me see some comments in the comment section. We are live on Facebook and YouTube right now. All right, Vidhan. Thank you, Vidhan. You're absolutely correct. Janvi, correct. Bingo. Veer. Well done, Veer. So all of you have actually guessed it right. It's undoubtedly Instagram. Let's talk about the next one. Let's see if you're able to guess, my dear young audience. Absolutely. Correct, Veer. Correct, Vidhan. Bingo, Janvi. All right. Very well said. Very well said, Kamla. Yes, it is WhatsApp. Let's move on to the last one. Let's see which app are we referring to with this icon. All of you know it, right? It's Snapchat. Thank you, participants. I truly love to see your overwhelming participation in all kinds of activities that we're doing as a part of this live episode. Thank you so much. Now, participants, I'm going to move on to something called the fundamentals of a TED Talk. I mentioned earlier there are 3 fundamentals: a strong opening, a big purpose, a personal touch. I've already thrown light on these 3 different themes. Now, primarily, let me introduce you to the theme for the day. It's rightly said by Gigi Hadid, who's a fashion model. She says that we get to live in a time that we get to use social media as a tool, which means it's primarily in your hand. How do you make use of this tool? How do you misuse this tool? How do you overuse this tool? How do you abuse this tool, right? So basically it's in your hands, and therefore it's a tool. In fact, Dave Willis once said, don't use social media to impress people. Use it to impact people. How many of us are actually doing it? Right? In fact, a lot of us happen to be victims of false news, from the WhatsApp university or any kind of social media platform. And reminds me of what Abraham Lincoln had once said: don't believe everything you read on the internet just because it's a picture with a quote next to it. Do you really think Abraham Lincoln had said it? There was no internet way back at that time, right? So let's be very careful and vigilant about what we receive on the internet. People tend to misguide, mislead, and you need to be careful because social media is a tool and it can be used for verification as well. Right, participants? So moving on, let's talk about the agenda for the day, the theme for the day. So as you see on the screen, the agenda is pros and cons of social media. Let's quickly read out the points that we have. Number 1, social media basically is a computer-based technology that allows people to share thoughts, ideas, and information by creating virtual networks and communities. Number 1. Number 2, social media by definition is internet-based and provides users with instant electronic communication of content. We all know it. Number 3, participants. Content includes personal information, documents, videos, and photos. Users engage with social media via a computer or a tablet or a smartphone, via web-based softwares or applications. So basically some technical information on the definition of what social media is. All right, how do you define social media? Moving on, my dear participants, today we'll exclusively be focusing on the first fundamental, that is a strong opening. If you're delivering a talk on something like the pros and cons of social media, then I'm going to teach you how to draft your beginning. That is your first fundamental, which is a strong opening. All right, now there are 3 essentials in a strong opening, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1 is the opening minute. How do you open your talk? Number 2 is the introduction. Number 3 is the facts. All right, how do you incorporate a strong, robust, eye-catching intro? Okay, how do you incorporate some facts to make it more credible and insightful? And all the other things will be discussed right now. Now, let's begin with the opening minute, boys and girls. And the theme is the pros and cons of social media. Let's talk about the opening minute and why is this relevant to us? Now, for example, if you're someone who's delivering a talk on the topic, you have to remember that your opening minute can actually be made robust and impactful with a quote. So always remember to open with a quote. Now, what really happens is when you start the talk on a positive note, something like a quote probably, it gives instant credibility to your speech. I'm going to give you an example right now. Example, it's a quote by David Alston, who says that social media is not a media. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Beautiful, isn't it? That's how you begin. You have to hunt for the right quote, the right attention-grabbing device from Google in order to build this kind of an engagement or credibility with your audience. The second thing you do, ladies and gentlemen, is you add some positive statements. Now, I told you as a TED speaker, you cannot really have anything pessimistic on the topic, at least in the opening. You need to begin on a very peppy and positive note. And for that, you need to remember when you do that, you build interest of your audience and you intrigue your listeners, right? For example, Tom H.C. Anderson had rightly said, engage rather than sell. Work as a co-creator, not a marketer. So again, a very relevant quote on how social media engagement can lead to a fillip in your sales, and that's the quote that actually proves it. So always add positive statements on the given topic. The third thing you need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to raise a relevant question as a part of your opening minute. Now, what does raising a relevant question do? It builds connection with your audience and it creates curiosity in them. For example, if you ask a question like, so ladies and gentlemen, according to you, how long does the average person spend time on social media every single day? Now, they'll of course give their own guesses and surmises, but asking a question like this to them can actually trigger their own imagination. They'll put on their thinking caps and they'll actually try engaging with you. Even if they don't stand up and answer, they will be, actually pondering over the question you've asked them. That's actually a good idea to get started. Now, before we continue with the second essential, my dear participants, let me quickly give you an expert tip. And that is, the fastest way to grow your audience is to network with a larger audience. You don't want to target your competitors. Rather, find a larger influencer in a similar niche and work with them to share your expertise with their audience. So if you're not able to build your network instantaneously on social media, try collaborating or working with a bigger influencer who has probably a greater network, and try collaborating with them, working with them and sharing your expertise with their audience so that they get to know you well. Now, let me quickly give you a word that you should add to your vocabulary, my dear participants. The word is intent, which means showing great intentions or determined to do something. So being very aspirational, being determined, being intentional is what the word intent stands for. Moving on, my dear participants, I'm going to give you an example here. He's always been intent on making a lot of money. Intent, attentive, focused on, determined to. Now, we know that the quotes are really significant for a TED speaker. And for a TED speaker, you need to have your quotes handy, boys and girls. So let's discuss some quotes that you should be memorizing. Number 1, social media policies will never be able to cure stupid. Oh, well, that's a witty one. It's said by Nicole Kelly. All right. Social media policies will never be able to cure stupid. Nicole Kelly. The second one, our head of social media is the customer. Wow, isn't that relevant? Especially from social media marketing perspective. Our head of social media is the customer. It's a quote said by McDonald's. All right, very powerful. The next one, my dear participants, if you put any quote next to image and upload on social media, it will definitely go viral. Let's see who said it. Albert Einstein. All right, if you put any quote on social next to an image and upload that on social media, it will definitely go viral. That's what is happening today, you see, in this world of false news and wherein we see so many false facts coming up and people blindly believing them, following them. In such an era, it's important to understand the power of verification or cross-checking before we actually make something go viral or forward something. Now, coming to our second element, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, the first element was the opening minute, comprising of quote, positive statement, raising a question. The next one is introducing the topic. Now, how do you introduce the topic? Let's talk about this. So, for example, social media are interactive art because media is plural. Interactive technologies that allow the creation or sharing or exchange of information, ideas, interests, and other forms of expressions via virtual communities and networks. That's how you define social media. Now, please remember, boys and girls, your audience is generic. They're experts in this field. So you've got to keep your content really rudimentary and basic. Coupled with this, you can continue talking about understanding of social media by saying that social media began as a way for friends and family to interact, but it was later adopted by businesses looking forward to take advantage of the popular new communication method to reach out to more customers. The ability to connect and share information out with anyone on the planet and with many people is at once is the power of social media. So you talk about number one, a basic statement, a basic definition, and then you talk about the understanding. How can you make your audience understand the power of social media? That's an example that I've just given you. Moving on, participants, you can also tell your audience that there are over 3.8 billion social media users worldwide. When I say social media users, that means users using social media apps. Social media is constantly changing and evolving as a field, with new apps like TikTok and Clubhouse seemingly appearing every year, joining the ranks of established social media networks like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. The number of social media users in the US is expected to reach 257 million by 2023. Isn't that a whopping, eye-opening fact? That's how you make your audience understand the power of social media. Now, let's quickly have the fastest fingers first, ladies and gentlemen. Let's answer these questions pertaining to social media. Number one, does old generation use social media? Absolutely. Anybody can use social media. So if you have someone, a senior citizen at home, please teach them how to use social media, right? Things are easily accessible these days. Everything available at the tip of our finger, at our fingertips right now. Should we get habitual of using social media on a daily basis? What do you think? Well, that's a very personal choice. I would say no, you shouldn't get habitual because you need to know where to draw a line. You need to know your boundaries. You need to know where to actually put a full stop. So yes, you need not really get habitual to it. The next one, participants, is social media a good platform to improve one's skills? Well, I firmly believe that yes, social media is actually a great platform to use to develop your skills, but also see, it says maybe, it depends on the user, because it's also like a double-edged sword, So you can either use it to cut vegetables, chop vegetables, or maybe to chop off someone's hands. So basically, it's like a double-edged sword and totally depends on the kind of usage you have and the kind of approach you give. All right, participants, now moving on to our third element, that is the facts. How do you incorporate facts in your presentation, in your talk? Remember, the reason why you've got to do it is because it keeps the audience interested, it makes your point more believable, and it builds trust with your audience. So 3 things to remember before you actually incorporate your facts, boys and girls. So please remember, incorporating facts is important. And how do you do it? I'm going to teach you just that. All right, let's talk about the kind of facts you need to incorporate. So as you see on the screen, the largest social media network includes Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. These are the 5 largest social media networks in the world. That's a fascinating fact. Next one, by 2023, the number of social media users in the US is forecast to increase approximately to 257 million. Quite fascinating, you see. That's the second fact I have for you. The third one, boys and girls, is the average social media usage of internet users worldwide is 145 minutes per day, right? Which would be around 2.5 hours. Okay, now let me quickly ask you some questions, boys and girls. Number one, do you need to log in order to use social media? Well, absolutely. You need to log in. You need to have your credentials before you log in. Now, let me quickly give you a recommendation. I told you recommendation is a must because if you want to understand the concept behind TED Talks, why is it curated, you need to watch as many TED Talks as possible. And I know it's difficult to cherry pick something on your own because of the vastness of the TED world. So therefore, I have a recommendation for you. And my today's recommendation is How Social Media Makes Us Unsocial by Alison Graham. How social media makes us unsocial. Such an eye-catchy, ironical topic. Now, that's something you need to watch today as your homework, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's talk about what we discussed today. In today's talk, we basically talked about, we learned about the first fundamental, that is a strong opening, wherein we talked about the 3 elements for strong opening. Number 1, the opening minute. Number 2, the introduction. Number 3, the facts. These are 3 things we discussed today. And in tomorrow's episode, boys and girls, I will be talking to you about the big purpose. What is the big purpose? And how do you basically talk about, how do you incorporate a big purpose while discussing something with your audience? All right. So tomorrow I'm going to be continuing with the same theme, boys and girls. The theme would be the pros and cons of social media. And we will discuss the second one, that is the big purpose. We will be deconstructing it. We will be, dissecting it and coming up with interesting content on the big purpose. I hope you really enjoyed today's episode, boys and girls. I hope it was of value to you. Once again, thank you so much for joining in, for making all our episodes a roaring success. I'm going to catch you tomorrow at 7:15 p.m. IST live. Please make sure you attend, inform your friends about it, and let's all join hands together and let's make public speaking a learnable skill, a skill that all of us can learn from and take advantage of. Right, participants? So once again, thanks a lot. Thanks for your unflinching support. And let's remember what Dale Carnegie once said. Only the prepared speaker deserves to be confident, which means if you want to be confident, you need to know that preparation is the key. And what we're doing right now is that rigorous preparation. So please join me in the next episode. See you. Good night and take good care of yourselves. Thanks a lot.